Shalom, dear friends. We are coming to the end of the ministry of Jesus in Galilee. The multiple healing stories and the feeding of the 4,000 men lead to the conclusion of the Galilean ministry of Jesus. From now on, Jesus is mostly with his disciples, leading them on a journey from Galilee to Jerusalem, instructing them on the essentials of discipleship. I would like to highlight a very crucial, pivotal passage that we find in chapter 16. This is also going to be a major turning point in the life of Jesus. Jesus is now with the disciples on the northernmost part of the region of Israel called Caesarea Philippi. This is a city that was given to Herod the Great by Augustus Caesar. This was called Paneas because there was a sanctuary dedicated to God Pan. Philip, the son of Herod the Great, rebuilt it and called it by name Caesarea Philippi, giving importance to the emperor and to himself, Caesarea Philippi. Now, Jesus is taking the disciples to this place, to the northernmost part of Israel, to begin his journey down to Jerusalem. At the end of the Galilean ministry, Jesus is asking them a question. Who do people say that I am? The opinion is divided from John the Baptist or Elijah, Jeremiah or any of the prophets. Jesus doesn't seem to be satisfied with that, and he asks, who do you say? And Peter, as usual, takes a prominent role as a spokesperson for the 12 in Matthew's Gospel, gives a complete answer, a double title to Jesus. You are the Christ, the Son of the living God. Double recognition of the identity of Jesus, both as Messiah and as the Son of God. And the response of Jesus is immediate. Blessed are you, Simon, son of Jonah. Blessed, Macarius. This is the 12th time Jesus calls someone blessed in Matthew's Gospel. And a new name is given. You are Petros, Peter. And on this Petra, rock, I will build my church, ecclesia. There is a play of the words. You are Petros, and on this Petra, I will build my ecclesia. This Petros is a translation from Aramaic Kepha, again meaning rock. And this title for Peter as Cephas is given 9 times in the New Testament. But this is the first time a person is called Petros. Till then, there is no one in history who has a name Petros. Jesus gives Simon the name Peter. The identification of Peter with rock, on which rock Jesus will build the church, is significant. You are Kepha, rock, and on this Kepha I will build my church. What is the significance of the rock? In the Old Testament, God is called the rock. He is the rock of Israel. Book of Deuteronomy, Samuel, Psalms, Isaiah. They all speak of God as the rock. Later, the rabbis considered Abraham as the foundation rock on which Israel was founded. And now, God promised to build Israel on the rock of Abraham. Jesus promises to build the new Israel, the church, on the rock of Peter. Again, I will build my church. Out of all the four Gospels, Matthew only has this term, ecclesia, church, both here and again in chapter 18, verse 17. Greek ecclesia comes from two words, ek, kalevo, a community that is called out. Community called together by Jesus. Let us not think of a church, when we think of church, as a structure, physical structure. No, it is a community gathered by Jesus. In Hebrew, it is called kahal. More than 100 times in the Greek Old Testament, kahal is translated as ecclesia. And the gates of Hades will not prevail over it. It's a Sheol, Old Testament. That is the dwelling place of the dead. The power of evil will not be able to destroy the community of this ecclesia, community of Jesus. I will give you the keys of the kingdom. The keys signify bestowing authority. In receiving the key of the kingdom, Peter becomes the steward of the kingdom of heaven on this earth. So it is his function to open or close the gates of heaven. In the Acts of the Apostles, we find Peter exercising his authority. At Pentecost, he opens the gates of the church to 3,000 believers. Chapter 10 of Acts, he opens the church to receive the Gentiles. Binding and loosing is again given to the church, to Peter. And it refers to the legislative power of expelling or recalling the members. And that is now entrusted to Peter. The promise to Peter in chapter 16, verse 17 to 19, the foundational treatment for the office of papacy. And this is one of the most debated texts in the Gospel. And the interpretation of that has affected the relationship between the churches. Has Peter's primacy been handed on to his successors? The Catholic Church answers in affirmative. The successors of Peter as Bishop of Rome inherit the promise given to Peter. So all the successors of Peter as the Pope, as the Bishop of Rome, inherits this power from Peter. The Orthodox theologians affirm that all the bishops confessing their faith in Jesus inherit the promise given to Peter, while the Protestant theologians acknowledge the primacy of Peter, but they state that the promise given to Peter is given to Peter alone, and that is not given to the successors. After this incident, we have the first of the three important predictions of Jesus with regard to his suffering, death and resurrection. At this time, Peter rebukes Jesus. And there, the response of Jesus is very clear. Get behind me, Satan. Satan, who tried to tempt Jesus after baptism by preventing him to do his will, now appears in the form of Peter from preventing by doing his will given to him by God by following the way of passion and death. Earlier, Peter was called the foundation stone of the church. Now he is called as the stumbling stone. Satan who offered kingship without suffering. Now Peter is trying to prevent Jesus by preventing him to go through suffering. And note what Jesus said at the time of temptation. Get away, Satan. To Peter he says in chapter 16, get behind me, Satan. The disciple is one who follows the master, not one who stands in front of the master. This theme of following the master will be continued in the coming chapters. May God bless you.